new ways to drive the economy.
Question number 6, Andrew Little.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Does he stand by his statement in relation to achieving a surplus that it is like, quotes, landing a 747 on a pinhead, end quotes?
Speaker.
All right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Yes, because history shows that fiscal forecasts and outturn moves move around quite substantially. For example, in Budget 2008, the then Minister of Finance was forecasting a $1.3 billion overall surplus in 2008-9. As it turned out, he left the government books in deficit by $3.9 billion that year, and Treasury told us we faced never-ending deficits under the previous government's policies. So yes, forecasts can move around a lot, but this government is making good progress on fixing up the hash of it that Labor made.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
Why is he trying to minimise the importance of achieving a surplus this year when he's made it a core part of his government's credibility for the past 4 years? Why can't he just admit he's failed?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
We're trying to minimise it. We are pointing out that there are a number of factors that make it a little bit trickier, and that is, for instance, that inflation is so much lower, which is great for consumers, that there are a number of areas where there's been revaluation by the Treasury. But, Mr Speaker, if we just take a step back for a moment and say in 2011 what was the deficit, the answer was $18.4 billion. The HIFU forecast for this year's deficit is $585 million. And I will point out that every single attempt to either raise revenue or cut expenditure by this government has been opposed by the Labor opposition.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
Does he accept he would now likely be on track to surplus if his government hadn't spent $36,000 on sending ministers to Northland, hadn't wasted tens of millions of dollars on Nova Pay, hadn't lost hundreds of millions of dollars in dividends due to the asset sales, and wasn't blowing the budget on everything from charter schools to IRD computers?
Yes. Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, no. I will point out that Nova Pay was something that came along under the previous Labor government. And, Mr Speaker, when it comes to the hundreds of millions of...
Order. I can't hear the answer with that sort of noise. With the Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, when it comes to the hundreds of millions of dollars more that we might have got under the mixed ownership model, that was money that was literally blown by the reckless policies of the Labor opposition, so firmly rejected by the New Zealand public.
Why don't you pull the other?
Order. Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
Why does he say low inflation is to blame for his failure to reach surplus, when low inflation saves the government money just as it saves taxpayers from paying more tax? Why does he always greet failure with excuses rather than fronting up?
Yeah, exactly.
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I'm hugely fearful that the Leader of the Opposition is getting his economic advice from Grant Robertson, because he needs to go and read a decent speech on economics, and he'll see one from the Minister of Finance where he quite accurately pointed out that because of lower inflation over the next 4 years, the government's revenue will be $15 billion less, and the tax revenue the Crown receives will be $4.5 billion less. Low inflation is great for consumers, great for business. It just ain't great for government revenue.
Supplementary question. Order. Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
When will he admit that his government, acting as a bystander at the dairy auctions rather than building a more diverse economy, is the real reason his economic promises are falling away as fast as the milk price?
Mr Speaker,
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
I don't know if I misinterpreted the question from the Leader of the Opposition, but he seems to be saying that the government should be in there buying milk powder in the auction. If he does, that's an interesting use of government resources.
Question number 7, Sarah Dowry.